Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Friday class here at Sam's Bead Shop. I'm so excited to be joined by Meredith from Beadalon. Meredith, how are you doing today?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm so excited about this project.
Me too. We are playing around with gemstones today, bringing in a bunch of different colors and sizes to make a gorgeous pendant design. I love this design so much. Will you tell us about it?
Sure. I mean, I'm so glad that you love this design. It's an oldie but goodie. I have not,
Mhm.
I hadn't until we started down this journey of creating this class today. I hadn't made this in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And at the time that I did make it, I made a bunch of different variations. And it's a really simple project. And my favorite projects, Rachel, are the ones that are deceptively simple. So
Mm.
when you wear it, people will say, "Oh my gosh, that's so complicated, that's so intricate." But actually, when you break down the steps, it's pretty easy. And like I said,
Yeah.
those are my favorite projects. So I was so glad when you sent me the photo and was like, "Can we do this?" I was like,
I know.
"Yes, let us resurrect that. Let me tweak it out a little bit and
Mhm.
do it with some different sizes, see how it works with different finishes." And here we are.
Yeah, because you taught this pendant. I'm calling it a gemstone wreath. That's what it looks
Love
like
it.
to me. A wheel, a pinwheel, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I saw that you had made it a couple years ago, and I just thought it was a great way to show off gemstones and use very like classic shapes. We're using rounds and rondelles. Like these are the things that people like often get first when they're picking out gemstones and whatever their favorite one is. And so it's also just accessible in that way. And so I'm glad we could like bring it back because not everyone got to see it the first time.
Yes, and you made me think of something also. It doesn't take very many beads. So
True.
it's a great stash buster if you have a couple of beads left over from another project. And it doesn't have to be all one bead either. You could do
Mhm.
like an ombre around, a rainbow around, you know, as long as your beads are consistent in size, you'll be able to create the shape. Oh,
Cool.
hi
Well, then,
friends. Yay.
yes.
Welcome everyone. That's so
Thank you,
happy.
everyone, for joining us live and everyone watching the replay. Well, would you hold one of these up and just give us a close up of what this is? What's going on there?
Sure. So this is the one that was featured in the project or in the photo for our class today. I have a
Wow.
couple of other variations too. I played around. I didn't finish it into a finished piece, but I played around with some amethyst. And remind me, is that apatite? What is that beautiful blue stone?
Yeah, you got apatite and
Apatite.
black spinel there.
Yeah, so pretty. And then I have the original that I made, which is this. I don't know what this is. Probably an agate of some sort, or perhaps
Mhm.
a jasper. I think it's
Yeah,
an
I love the
agate.
blues and the greens. That's
Yeah,
nice.
really, really pretty. And then I just did a little variation. You can see, I don't know or if other people are guilty of this, but I have so many just about finished
Yeah.
pieces with little tails that I just haven't woven back in yet. And this is one of those. But I really liked this color variation too, these grays and reds. I thought that was a really, really pretty one. Um, so yeah, as long as your proportions work, and I would encourage everyone just at the jump to experiment with different
Mhm.
sizes. So I'm using 8 millimeters, 6 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 3 millimeters, and seed beads to do this project. But maybe you could work with tens and eights and sixes.
Hmm.
I haven't actually made
Yeah.
this with those. I'm just trying to force the focus. There we go. Um, I feel like if I stop talking, it will actually focus. I don't think that that's how it works. Anyway, so yes, I definitely encourage you to play around with different sizes and then different finishes. If you've got some facets would might work really, really nicely too. It's a very simple 2 needle crossover or a right angle weave stitch. Some people kind of like to put that in the ladder stitch category also, but I just call it a two needle right angle weave. And all I'm doing is varying the sizes and then going back through the beads a couple times. So
Amazing.
yeah,
It does not
really
look
amazing.
simple. It looks so special.
Well, then I'm looking forward to proving you wrong, Rachel, in our hour long journey today.
So I'll just share a little about the beads in this one. So what we're going to be playing around with mainly is Amazonite. It is gorgeous color. I believe this is the South African Amazonite that we have. It's so pretty. That's what's in the 8 and the 6. And then there's also some strawberry quartz along the edges. We've got some lab rondelles in the center, as well as some of our metal spacers that are made in Greece, and then some 11O seed beads. So this is one color variation, but yeah, we also launched some brand new amethyst and apatite and spinel if folks want to pick that up, or just do it in whatever version you would like. Yeah.
Ooh, and I even did finish this one. I just didn't string it up into
Oh, great.
a into a finished piece. Yeah, and the thing that's fun here, and we can talk about this when we get to it, is lots of different options for finishing this off. I have actually a pinch bail as one of the finishers. Here I just did a little loop, a little
Yeah.
picot loop with seed beads, size 11 seed beads. And here I actually used a really long piece of the wire. We're going to talk about the wire in a second. And then I continued it into the design. So there's no stopping after the pendant. I actually just continued that wire, so I didn't have to worry about finishing it off.
Fascinating. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so I talked all about the beads, but it's very important what type and size of wire used for this kind of project. So what do you recommend?
Okay, so oftentimes for bead weaving, we use thread. We either use a
Yeah.
wildfire or a fire line, or people like a Nymo or a 1J. I mean, there's so many different types of stringing materials out there. I wanted my pendant to have some really good structure. I didn't want it to be floppy. I didn't want to be able to bend it around. Different projects call for different stringing materials. This little warped square that I wove up top, of course I would need a wildfire or a fire line or some sort of thread for that. But in a project that I really want it to be stiff and have some good structure to it, I'm going to use beading wire. And I know that those of you who know me know that I could spend the next hour talking about beading wire, but I won't do that. I will spend 30 seconds just to mention that the wire that I chose for this project is the Beadalon 19 strand. And I chose an 015 diameter because I'm going to have to go through these bead holes several times, at least twice. And in a couple of instances, one instance, actually 4 times. And I can't do that with 018 wire. I can't do that with 024 wire. Sometimes even, I might even, if my bead holes were small, and a lot of gemstones are drilled with very, very small holes, I might need to bump down to a 0.012 wire. But I chose 015 for this project because 012 is a little bit more of a specialty diameter of wire, and 015 is a lot more versatile. And so if I'm going to recommend something for a project, especially if someone hasn't done it before, I'm more inclined to recommend a wire that's going to be a little bit more versatile.
Yeah.
And so those are all of the reasons why I chose wire for this project.
Right. And I'll just add that we've had that larger 0.019. Is it 18 or 19? I'm blanking right now, but the next size up, we've had that in the shop for a while from Beadalon. But just this week, because of this project, we made sure to stock up on this 015 size so that folks can do these projects. You can either grab it in the silver color or the satin copper, whichever one you would like.
I love that you chose the satin copper. It is such a warm, just a really nice wire to use with like a citrine bead or like a
garnet or
what's that?
I was thinking like a garnet, some warm tone bead.
100%. And the great thing about that I do want to mention about the silver color and also that that satin copper wire is when you're using these translucent beads with the colored wire, it really makes the color of the beads shine from within. It really accentuates the color of the beads. If you're using a stainless steel wire, that's fine with an opaque bead like these Amazonite here. But if I'm running it through these translucent beads, there's a possibility that you'll see that little bit of wire, that little bit of gray, or that kind of that dark gray coming through. So I always, if I'm using a bead that's translucent that I can see through, I always use a colored wire. And if you've been following along and you know me, you know that silver color wire is my go-to for 90% of what I do for beading.
Cool. Okay, now we got all the important details on the stringing wire. I'm glad we know all of that.
Yes, yes, and there's always a reason for choosing a specific material for your project, and you just kind of have to think about strength. You have to think about durability. You have to think about flexibility. If you want it to be very drapey, if you want it to be very stiff,
Yeah.
that's going to inform what you decide to make your project with. So, are we ready to get started, Rachel?
Let's do it. I know we keeping everyone waiting. Let's do some crafting.
All right, perfect. So again, 19 strand 015 silver color wire is what I'm using. And for this project, I'm going to pull out about 3 feet. I just measured a half of a wingspan. That's kind of my go-to for a project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a version with, I'm going to do that same version, that Amazonite. So let's talk about what the other materials that we're going to need for our project. So I've got these 8mm beads, and I only need, I think it's 12. Let me just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep. 12 beads for the outside, 12 beads for the inside, 12 beads for the middle. So if you've got 12 extra beads from a project laying around, you can make this necklace with no trouble at all. And again, if you want to do an ombre effect, if you want to do like, one color, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's no reason why you have to keep it monotoned like I have. So I'm just going to pull out my 8mm beads and put them in a little pile here. And then I'm going to pull out my 6mm beads, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Put them in a little pile so they're easily accessible. Then I'm also going to need, for the insides and the outsides, I'm going to need a 4mm rondelle for my insides and 3mm rondelle for my outsides. And remind me, this is
I think
quartz.
yeah, we have the strawberry quartz. I think that was a 4mm round there.
Oh, you're correct. Yes, I apologize. It's faceted. Did I say rondelle? I meant faceted.
Yeah, no problem. Because I'm realizing you made 2 slightly different versions, right, of this Amazonite one?
Yep, 100%. One
Okay.
has the 4mm metal on the inside, and
Yeah.
the
The 4mm round.
and the 4mm round on the outside, and this one has the 4mm on the inside and the 3mm on the outside.
Okay.
And now, Rachel, that you mentioned that, I think we're gonna stick with this one because it laid a little bit nicer. Cool. But this allows me the opportunity, see what I did there, to talk about what happens if you change around your materials in this. In the version that I made, that has the rounds in the middle and the 3mm on the outside, it's a little bit bowed. And I had that challenge also with you can see it's a little bit bowed. That might not bother you, especially because it's such a beautiful piece. And when it lays on you, it's not going to, nobody's going to see that it's bowed. But I got it in my head that I really needed this to be a lay flat project. Why? I don't know. I just got it in my head. So I played around with a number of different variations, and I found that in order to get mine to lay flat with the right tension, I used these 4mm metal, these 4mm. No, yeah, I'm sorry, Rachel, say what they are.
They are 3x4mm rondelles.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to defer to you for all things. No, I don't know why I'm trying to remember what these things are. And so you can see, I hope that you can see, by changing the materials, it'll change it just a little bit. But the takeaway message is, if you like how it looks and you like how your beads come together, go for it. If you're crazy like me and you need it to lay flat, then this is the one that you're going to do. Cool. Is that a good takeaway for designing of a project? All right, but same thing. We're going to do those 8mm and those 6mm. And now I'm going to pull out from my little bag of tricks some of these. Actually, I have some out right here. So we're going to use these ones. Which ones are these?
Those are the metal spacers, the faceted rondelles, 3x4mm. They're made in Greece. They're really high quality. We really like working with this manufacturer.
Yeah, they're great. And then we're going to use the
4mm strawberry quartz.
4mm strawberry quartz. And why do I not have a little baggie of 4mm strawberry
Oh,
quartz?
I wonder if you used them up.
I bet I did. Did I?
I don't know.
Well,
You
you know
did.
what? We're just going to take this one apart.
Yep.
But
That's
we'll
fine.
cross that bridge when we get to it because we don't need
Sounds
to
good.
worry about it.
And then do you
Yeah.
need any of those rondelles for the inside, those labs?
And I've got those right here.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. All right, I've got my piles laid out so that I will not have to worry as I'm doing my designing.
And I guess, do you want to pour out any of the seed beads too? Doesn't hurt.
That does not hurt at all. So the last thing in our list of materials are silver lined crystal size 11 seed beads. And the fun thing about this is that you only need 12. So I could probably, without even doing anything, pick up 12 seed beads from this mat from other
Yeah,
projects.
from the floor, from anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like a lifetime supply of seed beads if you get one tube just to do this project. But seed beads are great to have around for all reasons. You guys know that I love my seed beads. All right, so I have pulled out about 3 feet of my silver color wire, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding beads. So first step, I'm going to put 1 4mm bead onto my wire, and I'm going to center that. I'm just going to let it drop down to the center of my wire. Okay, and then on one side, actually, I'm so sorry. Take that off because that was a 6mm bead. This is what happens at
Oh,
6
yeah,
o'clock Eastern time on a Friday afternoon.
yeah, a little
Why did
later
we
into
decide
there.
that this was going to be the right time for our class today, Rachel? When I'm like
I
the
just wanted to
most
challenge you.
tiredness.
Yeah, at the end of the week, almost the weekend. Well,
I don't know about you, but this has been quite the week. All right,
yeah.
so let's actually do the right thing. Let's put on one of these metal beads first.
Okay. Okay, so it's
And
that like middle ring that, in a way, is
yep.
the bead we're
So
putting
what
on
the thing
first.
that goes on first, like Rachel just pointed out, is going to be this middle bead. So whatever you choose for your middle bead, that's what's happening for our very first bead. And then we're going to put on our 6mm bead on one side and our 8mm bead on the other side. So just so that we see what's going on. And could I have done 6, 4, 8? Sure. But it's Friday afternoon, so here we are. Now what we're going to do is put on one more of those spacer beads. And part of the reason why I chose these spacer beads as the center bead in my final project is because these are the beads that are going to need a bigger hole. And you can see there that these beads have a nice big hole because I'm going to need to go through that first bead with 4 wires. And that again proves or just shows why we need that 0.010 wire, because an 018 wire is not going to be able to go through the center bead 4 times. All right, so I just put 1 8mm on one side, 1 6mm on the other side, 1 3x4mm in the middle, and I'm just kind of tightening everything up. I don't want everything to be so tight that it starts bowing out, but I don't want there to be, I'm just going to move this down a little bit, and I'm going to move all of this extra stuff out of the way so that we can gain a little bit better focus on what we're doing. All right. So I want to make sure that I have a pretty good tension, not so tight that this is getting curly, but not so loose that there's too much extra space. And it's a pretty loose project. So as we're going, a lot of that extra slack is going to be filled in. So I don't worry about it too much now. You just want to make sure that you're working in the center of your thread. If you're a little off by a couple inches, either way, I think it'll be just fine. And as we're going to build 11 more units, or 11 units total, with one 6mm on one side, one 8mm on the other side, and one spacer in the center. And what I'm doing with that spacer is I'm putting it on one wire and then I'm crossing back through the other wire. That's where that 2-needle crossover technique, or the 2-needle right angle weave, whatever you want to call it, comes into effect. Move these out of my way a little bit as well. So we're getting underway. We need a little more room for that wire. And I'm just going to make sure that everything is nice and snug, not tight, but snug. And I'm going to continue doing that a couple more times. One 6mm on one side, one 8mm on the other side, spacer in between, and cross back through that spacer, tighten everything up. So Rachel, when you design, what are the things that you like to make? Have you ever done a project like this where you're using wire as more than just stringing?
I think yeah, actually, because I did a project with our March Northern Lights box that I wish I had it with me right here. I think it might be upstairs. But yeah, I actually didn't even realize that it was in some way related to this, but it was like a right angle weave. But I basically only did like 3 loops of it. And then the rest of it was just like a single strand of wire going around. So I just made this like small bracelet focal. And it kind of is a similar technique. It's kind of like if you just stopped where you are right now and made that the center of a bracelet. That's kind of what I did.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. And you make a very good point that this technique can be used in a lot of different ways. It doesn't just, I mean, like once you kind of get this in a more traditional way of doing this technique is using beads that are all the same size.
Yeah.
And by varying the sizes of the beads, that's what kind of gives you this cool round shape.
Yeah, that's what I've definitely never done, because I've always, I would have, in my design, I essentially had the 8mm large bead on both sides so that it stayed that flat, straight bracelet bar. But here we need to get it to curve.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay.
And
that's because we have the smaller bead on one side and the larger on the other. And that's what sort of tricks the wire into going the way that we want.
Yep. And as I'm doing it, I'm kind of moving the wire, or the form around in a circle too, so that the wire is going to do what I want it to do.
And also, when folks are making this at home and stringing it up, I think the hardest thing will be to remember to put like the 6mm on the same side. It always ends up on the right side every time. You want to avoid flip-flopping those.
Yep, 100%. And a good way to avoid putting the wrong one on is just to keep it kind of how I am keeping it, and maybe if you put the 6s on the one side, that the wire is going to be on, and then the 8s on the other. But you know what? If you put a wrong one on, you just take it off and do it again. Kind of like I did with that very first bead. If you're like, you know what, I wanted to start with the 3x4 instead of the 6, you just take it off and realign. When I was playing around with the lie flat obsession that I had, one of the things that I was also playing around with is doing it with less than 12 rounds, or 12 not rounds, but 12 units, because I don't know, 12 seems to be the sweet spot though for a really nicely proportioned
for that final circle size.
Yeah, I did one with 10, but it just didn't quite look right. I feel like 12 is kind of the sweet spot. But I would love to know if anyone has made something like this before and the beads that they've used for it, or if anybody kind of has some inspiration for what they're thinking, kind of speaks to them, maybe from their stash,
Yeah.
maybe from a past box, maybe from something that they want to see in a future box.
Yeah, that's a great question. What if you guys are thinking of making this necklace, or just as you know, kind of brainstorm it, what gemstones might you put together? You know, we're putting together Amazonite, Labradorite, and strawberry quartz, but you can put together any of them. It can be any stone. You could bring in, let's see, you could put, yeah, citrine, carnelian, garnet, apatite. Like what would you all want to combine? Let us know.
Rachel, what is your favorite gemstone?
It is turquoise and carnelian.
Nice.
100%. Those two together make me so, oh, well, and I've recently fallen in love with like sunstone and peach moonstone. So
Ooh,
I can't pick one, but
I
those
love peach
it's the
moonstone.
southwest orange and blue peach colors. I'm obsessed with that combination.
Nice. All right. So I've gotten around. You saw me just count that last round, just to double check and make sure that I was on track. So I'm going to count around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now I'm at my 12th unit. I've done 11 units and I'm at my 12th. And for my 12th unit, what I want to do is I want to add a 6 millimeter here and an 8 millimeter here. And then I'm going to, instead of adding and crossing through, let's see if I can bring this down really close. Instead of adding another 3x4, I'm actually going to do my cross through the one that's already on my piece. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got to back this up because I'm just going to keep hitting it. So I'm going to put the 6 millimeter on the same one that I've been putting it on, the 8 millimeter on the same one that I've been putting it on. And then, like I said, instead of adding another, I'm going to pretend that this one is the one that I'm adding. So I'm going to come up with the bottom and I'm going to go down with the top. And this is my opportunity to zhuzh. I want to make sure that nothing is bowed out, but everything is tight enough. And as I was demonstrating, I could tell that I wasn't quite getting things as tight as maybe I would if I were doing this kind of as a piece, holding it up and giving it a little bit more, more tension by holding on to it. But the sacrifices that we make for demonstration's sake. Now what I need to do is I need to move my thread path so that I can go start weaving around the top or the outermost or through these 8s on the outside of my circle. I'm also going to be weaving through the 6s on the insides of my circle. I'm not sure that it matters which one you do first, but I tend to almost always do the outer circle first. So that's what I'm going to show today. So you can see, I'm going to pick this up so we can see what's going on here. My thread is, or my thread, my wire is coming out of that 3x4 bead. And because it had such a nice hole, or such a nice large hole, it was real easy to get the wire through. On this one, when I was weaving through the rounds, they have a very small drilled hole. And so it's a little bit more of a challenge to get my wire back through. So just a note to self as you're choosing your beads, maybe you want to just ream that one out. You can use a battery operated bead reamer and just make the one on the end have a bigger hole. Easy enough solution. But I didn't think that we wanted to get into all that for our class
Yeah,
today.
that's a step up, but it's a good option. It's a
Yeah.
good tip.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through that 8 millimeter, that first 8 millimeter on the outside of my project. And you can see why, again, you need the smaller wire, because I'm going back through these gemstones several times with that wire. And I'm going to, just to get this and keep this a little bit tighter and keep a little bit more tension here, I'm going to go ahead and go back through the 6mm on the bottom the other way with this wire. It's just going to help me keep everything a little bit more secure as I'm working. All right, so now we decided, what did we decide, Rachel? We're going to do these.
I think we were, were we gonna?
We're going to do the pinks on the outside, which means
Yeah.
I need to grab them from here.
It's not in the bag, just to the upper left. Is that labs?
Oh my gosh. What would I do without you?
Hey, I am your sidekick today. I'm happy to
You
help.
are a lifesaver. Yes. Oh
They
my
just
gosh.
popped into the screen all of a sudden. I was like, wait, those are pink.
Yuppers. And I put them there so as for safekeeping. And look at how safe I kept them. All right. I knew I had them. I was so confused, but then I was like, all right, well, maybe I don't. I'm just going to go with it. All right. So these guys are really, really pretty. And for some reason, I am struggling with finding the holes. So you know what we do when we can't find the hole really easily? We pick up another bead.
Good choice.
Right? Just like that.
That was so easy.
I know the hole is there because I took it off of a strand, but you know what? Sometimes Friday night eyes, you can't see the hole, so you just go with another bead. All right, so I put that one, the 4mm faceted round, and I'm going to thread through the next bead. The other thing I like about using wire to do this kind of a project is I don't need a needle, so I don't have to worry about getting my thread on a needle. I don't have to worry about maybe the needle is too thick to go through the beads, right? Sometimes that happens if you're using, a number 10 needle. Sometimes that's a struggle to get through the beads.
Yeah, our stringing wire is our needle.
Yep.
Nothing extra needed.
Exactly. Another pro tip is if you are having a little bit of a challenge getting your wire through any of the beads, whether it be the 8mm or the smaller beads, and sometimes bead size does not necessarily correlate to the size of the holes of the beads either. You can come in with your cutters and cut your wire on a diagonal, especially if you're using wire that just came off the spool, like if it's a brand new spool. You almost always need to make a nice fresh cut on that wire. But if you're just kind of struggling with the end of the wire, just cut it on a diagonal and it'll be a lot easier to get through your beads. So I'm going to keep going around. And again, all I need is 12 beads. So I'm sure that left over from another project, or I know sometimes there are little sampler packs that you get, or if you have some favorites lying around from years past that you're like, ooh, this would be the perfect project for those couple last beads. But break them out and see if they're gonna work.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do this with just a bead soup of whatever random colors and beads you have lying around. Just make it complete, not just
100%.
rainbow intentionally, but just like random rainbow in every way.
So one of the things that just happened to me when I was stringing that one is my wire kind of got stuck underneath one of the other wires. So you just want to make sure as you're doing this that you're just going through that bead on the top and that your wire is coming out from that same bead on the top. You'll just kind of have to give it a little zhuzh, or a little nudge, I should say, to get it to go.
Yeah, you don't want it to go through the next bead as well.
And if it does, just back it out. Take your awl, or take a tweezers or a pliers and just gently pull it out. Okay, so now I am back around here to the beginning. I'm going to do my last My last one. And you can see I did not cut a super long piece of wire like I did on the example, because it can get a little fiddly when I'm demonstrating. But depending on how I wanted to finish this off, I would think about the length that I wanted my wire to be. And you can see I'm kind of doing a couple different things to get this wire through, because this bead has 2 wires going through it now, and this is a third. And it also has this bead on the other side that's blocking my wire. I'm just going to bring this up just a little bit, see if we can get a little bit of a better focus. So just slow and steady. If the wire isn't going through right on the first time, just kind of give it a moment. Let it do what you want it to do. And eventually it came through. And of course, everything got loose. So I just need to get everything tightened back up. And I have to see what's going on here, that I have this wire that is not where I want it to be. So I'm just gently coming in with my pliers, and I'm just tightening this up, and I'm wondering where the slack is coming from. So let me see if I can figure out where the slack is coming from. There we go. What's happening here? Oh, that's where that slack is coming from. All right, so I'm going to back this out just because I don't like what's happening there. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to replace that wire back down through that bead. Am I going to regret having pulled it out? Maybe. But I think I'll be able to get
you just
it
want to
back
get
down.
it back down so we can do our border on the inside.
Yep. And my wire is really being a little persnickety, but I'm just being patient and I'm pulling things tight. And I'm going to have faith that once I get that bottom all done together, everything is going to come together.
This can always be the back side if it's showing a little extra wire.
Yeah, no, everything is gonna come together in the end.
Yeah.
All right, so now I have to put this back down here. And we're ready to go. I just wanted to show that, sometimes the wire kind of gets a little funky, or maybe it got a little loose if you're not holding your tension tight. But by just kind of playing around with it, you should be able to get everything back in line. Yeah. All right, so now we're ready for our seed beads. Right? No.
I think you did a mix, which was kind of cool.
I did do a mix. I was like, wait a second, I see seed beads, but I also see those 3 millimeters.
Yeah,
and I did that again in my quest for flatness. So I'm going to do that again. We're going to switch them over. But I just want to point out also, like in this example here, I just did the seed beads.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in this example here, I switched them out. I did seed bead and 3 millimeter round. So again, the project, depending on the beads that you use, is going to change. And this one, I did all seed beads, and that's where it was a little wonky, right? So play around with it. We're learning the technique, and we're going to play around. And
because I mean, an 8 millimeter bead can vary a little. Maybe you're using more of an 8.4 versus a 7.8, and then how they sit together. Yeah, you might have to make adjustments as you're designing.
And I think that that's a good takeaway also for a lot of beadwork and a lot of patterns. Unless you're buying a kit, the variations in the individual beads could definitely affect the outcome. And even if you're doing seed bead weaving and you're using Tohos versus Miyuki, that has a big effect on the final outcome as well. All right, so I'm not worrying about making sure that my wire is coming to the front or the back. I'm just letting the wire come out of the beads where it's happy, and then going along with it. And you can see I'm kind of tapping it down each time just to kind of make sure that everything is tightening up and moving. Again, you don't want a super, super tight tension, as I think I've illustrated, because everything kind of comes together. And those are my famous last words. Everything comes together. And I'm just double checking and making sure that I'm doing
Yeah,
the
I can see you're alternating between the 11-0 seed bead and the 3x4mm rondelle.
yep. And see, like sometimes the wire's coming in or coming through on the back, and some of it's coming through on the front. And either way, I am happy just that it has come through the beads. That was one of the things that was a challenge as I was designing this project, both originally and then also using the different beads, is making sure that the wire would come through the beads, because beads are drilled differently. It just depends
Yeah.
on who was doing the drilling.
And Patty is saying some combos that she likes are aquamarine and pearl, and then emerald with amethyst. That sounds really beautiful. I love those ideas.
That sounds so pretty. I like that a lot. And I like also that you can design with um, gemstones with meaning.
Yeah.
And so with whether it's a personal meaning or a meaning for the recipient, or some sort of a good well wish that you would like to bestow upon the recipient, that's that. So like the colors, yes, but also the meanings behind the gemstones sometimes are really good. Sorry, I think I'm coming out of frame a little bit just to make sure that I'm getting this all
It is.
right. I apologize.
I can't believe how quick this comes together. Like, if you weren't talking with all of us this whole time, I'm sure you would have done this in like 15, 20 minutes. And even with explaining it to us, like, this is less than an hour for you to make the pendant. So
Yes.
that's amazing.
Yep.
I love
That's my
that.
favorite kind of project, one with big return. All
Yeah.
right. So now I've come back around. I've done seed bead, 3mm, seed bead, 3mm, all the way around. And now I'm going to continue. I want to make sure that I go through that last 6mm bead. I don't want to jump the gun and go back up to the top yet. And another pro tip is, if you need to grab those little ends, you can do that with your pliers as well. Sometimes maybe if you're playing wire chicken and you just have a little bit there on the end, it really helps to use your pliers to pull that through. So now what I need to do is I need to get that wire so that it is on the top. And I'm just kind of doing a little bit of a zhuzh here. Something's not going exactly the way I want it to. So I'm just kind of making it.
Yeah. And this is where I'm very curious. Yeah. Like, what are once we get there, but like what the options are for finishing it off? Like, how do you, like, I know, how do you end up ending these pieces of wire? How do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Are there crimps? Are there knots? Are there? I mean, I know that's where we're heading, but I'm very curious to see what happens.
100%. All right. Before we get there, though, we need to bank these wires or bringing them to where we want them to go next. And in this case, I want them to go up to the top. So I'm going to come through that center bead. And then I'm going to go back through this bead here. I have so many different options now because of the nature of the right angle weave, because it really is more of a right angle weave now, right? I have all of my units all the way around, and all I need to do to get my wire back to, where its mate is to sew back around. But in this
Oh,
case, I want
I'm
this
also
to be coming back
wondering,
this way.
did we maybe miss one bead at the bottom? Maybe that's why it's a little funky. Oh no, it's
No,
there.
it's
Oh, it's
there.
there.
It's just the
Okay,
wire
got
needs
lost
to
for a
kind of
sec.
work itself out. I'm looking to see if there was a mistake made, but I don't see one. I
Yeah,
see that all
no,
of
it got
the
pushed back there. Now I
that
see it.
it just needs to kind of pop in. And now I have popped it in. This one needs to pop in also. That's why I'm just kind of like moving it
Yeah,
around in my hands, because each of the beads needs to be popped in between the two wires that are going back up. Sorry, I'm looking at it and I'm not in camera. Each of the beads needs to be nestled in between the two wires that are heading back up toward the outside of the circle. And that's why that bead was a little bit funky, is because it's just not quite popped in there yet. But just by kind of moving things around, I'm getting it there. And then by the time I tighten everything up and this wire comes back out this way, we're going to be in good shape. And the
fabulous.
same thing over here. There's a little wire that's just a little bit off. And I think that what happened there, because all of the beads are in the right place, I think it's just a little too tight on one side and a little looser on the other side. And that's honestly just a kind of because I'm doing it down here as opposed to up toward my face.
Oh yeah, I know. Anytime I make something on camera, especially bead weaving, the tension is never as good
Yep.
when I'm making it off camera. Like it's a little trickier to get it right.
100%. All right. So now what I need to do, like I was saying, is I need to thread that last thread, that tail that I'm working on, from the bottom back to the top. And I looped it here, and I definitely do not want it looped here. So I'm going to take my awl, which is my second favorite, most favorite beading tool, and just pull that wire where it needs to go. And so now I have my wire, like this one, still, it just needs to kind of pop back, and this bead needs to pop out. So again, beading awl, chain nose pliers are going to be your best friends, and probably just your fingernails also, for getting everything where it needs to go and as tight as you need it to be. But yeah, I think they're all, I don't think I forgot anything. Oops, sorry.
I think
All
this
right.
is beautiful.
So finishing things off. So I have, let's see, no less than maybe 4 different examples of finishing things off here. The one that I decided that I liked the best was keeping it like with the wires long and turning it into a beaded strand. Interestingly, for this one, I either wove back around, or when I did my wires, do you remember in the very beginning when I was going from my right angle weave from my top and to the top, I should say, and to the bottom, I went this way on the top and this way on the bottom. Had I gone this way, then when I came back around, my wires would have been closer. Okay. But since I went this way, when I came back around, my wires are further away. Both ways are great. I actually might like this way more.
I know. I kind of like
decide.
It looks good with a little more space too.
Yeah. And so what I would do then is just start my pattern. So here I'm very much about patterns when I'm doing my necklaces. So I've got, 6mm, 4mm, 3mm, 4mm, 6mm, and I just continued that all the way around. I added this super, super beautiful magnetic clasp that you were kind enough to include for me, Rachel. Really, really pretty clasp. And I just crimped it normally. If you want, we can go over crimping really quickly. I don't know if that's something that you want.
Yeah, some tips for sure. But I definitely want to see all the other finishing options.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about the finishing options, and then I'll talk about crimping. So here, let's see if I can remember what I even did. This must have been knotted. I cannot find the knot. Oh, I just found the knot.
Really?
Yeah. So the fact that you can't see the knot is good, right?
Yep.
And this is actually, I think this is done on that satin copper wire now that I'm looking at it. And the fun other thing that's so great about wire is that because we can see the wire in this design, like here, this is on bright wire, the one on the right. Then the one in the middle is on silver wire, and the one on the left is with that satin bronze, or I'm sorry, satin copper wire. And so each wire gives it just a little bit of a different feel to it. It's a little bit hard to see the difference. I can see the difference between the bright wire and the silver wire. But again, another kind of style design tip. But for those of you with keen eyes, you will know, because I left a little tail in here so that I can see it. And I don't know if my screen froze for you for a second, but it froze for me for a second. The knot is right here.
Okay.
So I probably made that knot right there because I couldn't get the wire through the beads anymore. I honestly, I don't remember, but what I should have done and what I could still do is move this bail, which just opens up really easily. Actually, I can show you. The bail is over one of those beads on the outside. So if I move this bail over that knot and re-closed it, just a simple pinch bail. There are a gazillion different varieties. Yeah. I don't know if you carry any pinch bails.
Not sure. We might.
But yeah, just any old pinch bail will do. And now I have that pinch bail hiding that knot, and so no one's the wiser that it's there. So
and for the knot, one question, if you don't mind. Yeah. For the knot, are you like taking your two loose ends and tying those together, or are you separately knotting each side?
Awesome question. You probably could do either. It wouldn't really matter. But what I would do on this one, for example, if I wanted to, I would just come around. What I would actually do is try to come back through. I'm not going to do it because it's going to take me a little while to kind of get everything zhuzhed in there, but I might try to follow my thread path around one more, just to give it a little bit more more security. But knowing me, I probably wouldn't. I'm just going to tie an overhand knot here.
Oh, cool. And
just like that.
That might also be the same as like a half hitch knot, which I see in bead weaving a lot.
Yeah, so half hitch knot. Yep.
Yeah. So if folks want to see, if you're trying to get more details about that type of knot, you can look up a half hitch knot. Okay, so you would do that one maybe a couple times and then the other one separately, and then you can just cut it off, right?
Yep, then just cut it off. I might even just do it once. I don't think I would do it more than once. Cool. Because once you start getting the knots in here, it's going to be a lot harder to get your wire back through the rest of the beads. And that just doesn't sound like any fun to me. Okay, so then here, so we talked about this one. Here, I would have done the same thing. This would have been a knot somewhere as well. And it looks like this actually is done on satin silver wire. I'm trying to see if I can find the knot in this one.
I know you're good at hiding them.
They do tend to disappear.
Oh yeah, they can kind of go into one of those 8mm beads.
Yeah, I don't even see
where
the knot is. So there you go. I found the first knot pretty easily.
And then when you stitch the bail on, so you can, if you want to make a bail, there's many ways to do that.
Yep, for sure. And then let's see. Oh, this one was again. I really, really like this one. So I came out of the bead here. I just added 5 seed beads. I came down the next bead here, and then there's a little knot right here. I don't even think you can see it.
It's so tiny. I can barely see it.
Yeah. And I don't know, that depending on what I was going to string this on, I think that would hold, and that the knot would hold. I would just put a jump ring here and then do anything. I would do, a
Mhm.
cord or a strung design on wire,
Yeah.
or even a bead woven something around the top, some kumahimo. I don't know, like the possibilities are
Yeah, it
limitless.
could be anything.
But those are just a couple ideas, and I'm sure
Wonderful.
that people watching would, have another, wonderful round of a gazillion different ideas that I haven't even thought of yet.
No, but you have so many here. This is so helpful to see.
Okay, so we're gonna crimp, and let's see, I have some gold crimp beads right here in front of me, so I'm gonna use those, and just to kind of finish off, just I feel like I should never do a Facebook Live without talking about crimping.
Yeah,
So
we'll take your
um,
tips.
I'm going to use a number 1 crimp bead for this. Usually when I demonstrate crimping, I use crimp tubes, but I happen to have a bead here with me, and I'm just looking in a little, gotta have a clasp nearby. Let's see what's here. If you are a clasp, you most certainly should be around here. Well, we're just going to do it. Here we go. We're just going to use one of these. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to pretend that this is a clasp. It's just a fun little kind of finding. But this is definitely something that you could crimp something to. So I'm going through the hole. I'm going up, around, and back through my crimp bead. And I'm making sure, to the best of my ability, that my wires are not crossed. And I have a nice little 1/8 of an inch or so of wiggle room. And that is not the right crimp tool. That is also not the right crimp tool, but I'm going to bring them out just for funsies, because I have a mighty crimper and a micro crimper here, and neither of those is the right one. Where in the heavens is my crimp
Your
tool
tools are hiding from you.
of the right size? That's so weird. Give me just 1 second, Rachel. I'm so
Yeah, no
sorry.
problem.
All of my crimp tools are friends, and they hang out together next to each other, but they don't seem to be. Huh. What do you know?
Well, we can always cut it short if we need to, because we've shown so much amazing techniques today.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Well, we're going to do it just kind of in theory. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to pretend that I must have been using it in another project. I must be on a tray someplace upstairs. I'm going to walk upstairs, and it's going to be like,
Yeah,
haha,
you'll
here
be
I
right there.
am. So we're going to pretend like this is the proper size crimp tool. Do as I say, not as I do. And we're going to come back here in the back jaw, and we're going to press it down to form a taco. Okay, and because I'm not using the right tool for the right size crimp, it's a little bit smushed, but we're just going to pretend. Again, we're just pretending. And then we're going to come in here in the front, and we're going to put that taco into a burrito, and we're going to come around and around and around and around and around. And I need to say a million different times a disclaimer: this is the micro crimper. Don't use it on a number 1 crimp tube, but we're just showing the technique and what you would do. And then we're just going to pretend that my crimp bead is beautiful, and I'm putting my hands
Yes,
over it because it's not.
that is okay.
But in theory, that's what you do when you have the proper size crimp tool, where it should be, as opposed to not where it should be.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
But that's it. So we
That's it.
need our pendant, which again, we can then go and do a
So
gazillion different
cool.
things as we go forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So I did 12 over here. There's only 10 on this one.
Oh,
So go figure,
okay.
right?
That's why
We
that
did a
one's just a little
variation,
tighter. Yeah, but it
a
just
little
depends how
smaller.
large do you want your wreath to be.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. The
I think both
original
are great.
instructions were for 12, and that's what we did today. So it really depends, honestly. So many different variations of this
Yeah,
project, so many different ways of finishing it off, so many ways of using up beads in your stash. So thank you,
I love
Rachel, for
it.
letting me hang out and do a little beading
Anytime.
with
Thank
everyone today.
you. Thank you for sharing this technique with us and all of the tips that you've sprinkled throughout. I really appreciate it. Um, Thank you all for joining us live, for watching the replay. Definitely say hello in the comments so that we know that you have checked out our class today. Thank you so much, Meredith. This has been wonderful.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. See you soon.
Yeah, more beading later. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye.